My daughter ignored me at her graduation and said you don't deserve to be here. Now she's called 72 times, but it's too late. Hey everyone. Before we kick off today's video, I've got a favor to ask. We've noticed our channel isn't getting as much love lately, and subscribing is one of the easiest ways you can help us out. It's quick, free, and it means we can keep bringing you awesome content. Your support really means a lot, so let's work together to keep this channel growing. Thanks a bunch. Now, let's dive into the video. So, I found myself at this super fancy restaurant, you know, the kind where you need a degree just to pronounce the wines on the list, and it was so dimly lit everyone looked like they had their life sorted out. I pulled out the one suit I own, a charcoal gray number I swore never to wear again after my sister's wedding because it just brought back too many memories of that day. The tie was choking me, the collar was stiff, and my smile was as fake as my leather boots. But I had to be there, my daughter was graduating, and that meant the world to me, no matter what anyone else might think. Denise, my daughter, was sitting across from me looking all radiant in this sleeveless blue dress that basically screamed I made it look easy. Next to her was her boyfriend, or fiancé, who knows, one of those startup guys with slicked back hair and a laugh that overstayed its welcome. Julia, my ex, sat way at the other end, gripping her wine glass like it was some kind of lifeline she'd been rehearsing to hold forever. She never even glanced my way, which, honestly, I've gotten used to being invisible. There were also two of Denise's friends there, one from college and the other from high school, both a bit too dressed up and overly polite. One of them kept saying how amazing it was that we were all there together, kind of like this was a family reunion and not a posed moment for Instagram. Then the waiter comes around with champagne, pouring it gently before someone starts tapping a glass, classic signal someone's about to speak. Denise stands up, handling her glass with this practiced elegance, and starts talking. Her voice is soft, almost rehearsed, and it hits me because it sounds just like Julia's, passively piercing. I just want to say how grateful I am to everyone who supported me through these last 4 years, Denise began, pausing for effect. I honestly couldn't have done it without my mom's love, Brian's encouragement, she said, clutching his arm affectionately, and my friends who stuck around when things got tough. There were polite smiles and nods all around. And then, it happened. She looks right at me with eyes colder than my untouched crab salad and says, I want to acknowledge someone else, my father. A few awkward laughs broke out, probably because it felt so weird. Dad, you showed up tonight, so that's something, she continued. Her voice sharpened, but let's be real, you didn't raise me. You weren't at my birthdays, didn't pick me up from practice. Essentially, you weren't there when it mattered. You don't get credit for just buying a meal. You don't deserve to be here. The table went silent. Even the background music seemed to hush. Julia didn't stop her, didn't react, and that silence was the loudest betrayal. I looked at Denise and saw the little girl who once called me her hero, now replaced by someone with my ex-wife's voice and a stranger's eyes. I clapped slowly, 3 times, like applauding a magic trick you'd already figured out. The table didn't know how to react. Denise's smile faltered, Julia's lips moved silently, and everyone else just froze. I dabbed my mouth with the napkin and said, well, I guess I'll get the check. I left before dessert was even on the table. That walk to the parking lot was actually pretty peaceful. I didn't slam the door, didn't punch the steering wheel, didn't cry. I just drove home, 30 minutes of highway in silence, still in that stupid suit. Once home, I logged into Denise's tuition account. Julia never acknowledged it, and Denise never asked where the money came from. All those years of savings from me, quietly covering tuition, rent, books. She assumed scholarships or all mom's hard work. I transferred every penny to my account, not even a second thought. Then, I wrote a short note, folded it, and popped it in an envelope addressed to Denise. No long explanations, just 2 words, earn it. The next morning, I woke up to 72 missed calls from Denise, Julia, and some unknown numbers. No voicemails, just the frantic buzz of a phone desperately trying to convey chaos. I didn't respond. So, I kicked off my morning routine by whipping up some coffee, enjoying my breakfast at a leisurely pace, and amusing myself by watching a squirrel struggle with a peanut over on the fence. It was kind of serene. I hadn't heard from her yet, it seemed like she was waiting for me to be the first to text, or maybe she wanted me to feel bad. But honestly, I didn't. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was confident I was doing something right. People often say you should just be present, like it's this simple thing, but they never tell you how it feels to be there in the background, trying so hard to be important to someone even when they've been told you don't matter. I used to think if I was just steady and supportive, she'd eventually get it. But I've learned that staying quiet doesn't fix anything, it just lets others tear things apart without even trying. Denise was just 4 when Julia and I split up. I still remember her clutching my pants leg as I packed up my life and walked away from the house we'd tried to make a home for nearly 10 years. Julia was there at the door, arms crossed, looking like she couldn't wait for me to go so she could start rewriting everything. She said, "You can still be around," but it felt more like a landlord saying, "Stay until the lease is up, but don't expect any kindness." At first, it was little things, visits rescheduled, calls not returned, holidays double booked. I tried to be cool about it, swallowing my pride like it was medicine, thinking it'd be best not to rock the boat. I convinced myself that just turning up was enough, even if it meant waiting outside while she got ready, or playing a background role whenever I was around. You see, I worked 2 jobs for most of Denise's childhood, doing warehouse shifts on weekdays and bartending on the weekends. I missed out on a lot, not because I didn't want to be there, but because I had to keep a roof over both our heads. I never missed a child support payment, not even when money was tight. I remember a month when I had just $38 left after bills, enough for some bread, eggs, and a bag of apples. I told myself it was fine. When Denise was 10, Julia enrolled her in a private school without consulting me. I just got hit with a new tuition bill and an ultimatum: if you care about her future, you'll find a way. So, I did. I dropped my health insurance, took on extra shifts, and said no to anything that wasn't essential. Every month, I wired money straight to the school, no questions asked, no thanks expected. When Denise talked about her mom's sacrifices to get her into that school, I just nodded. What else could I do? Tell her, "Actually, sweetheart, your mom was just the spokesperson, and I was the bank?" She went to Yale, and I paid for every semester, all 10 of them. The funny part is, she always talked about how she got full scholarships based on merit and that Julia took care of the rest. But nobody gets through 10 semesters without help, and that help came from me. I'd get an invoice in the mail and make sure it was paid within 72 hours. I even saved the confirmation emails. Maybe one day I thought I'd show them to her. I wasn't invited to her high school graduation. Julia said there were only 2 tickets and she took her sister. I found out about it from Denise's Facebook post, a picture of her in her blue graduation gown. I went anyway, parked by the school, and found a spot in the back row of the bleachers just to catch a glimpse of her. She never knew I was there. I sent her a bracelet with her initials on it, and she thanked her mom in the comments. I didn't correct her. Presents? Let's talk about the time Denise broke her wrist in 8th grade, and Julia didn't tell me for days. Or when Denise needed a laptop, and I maxed out my credit card to get her a good one, only to see her thank her mom online again. When she was hospitalized for stress during her sophomore year, I found out through a friend, not Julia. I was always there, just not in the spotlight. So, when she stood in that fancy restaurant, surrounded by friends and glasses of wine that probably cost more than my groceries, and told me I wasn't there, didn't help, and didn't deserve. So, there I was, not flipping out, not throwing a tantrum like some dramatic soap opera parent trying to steal the scene. Nah, I just listened to the echoes of all those years, missed birthdays, quiet sacrifices she never knew about because someone made sure she didn't see them. And I grinned, but not out of happiness. It was something uglier, colder, because I realized she wasn't wrong, not in her eyes, and not in the setup Julia had crafted for her. I had let myself become invisible, and now I was paying the price. "You did nothing for me," she said. Those words stuck with me the next morning as I sat there with my coffee, letting them linger like smoke from a fire I didn't start. I didn't answer her calls. I didn't need to. Finally, I had some quiet for myself. There's something pretty awful about a lie told with conviction over years. It seeps into a kid's bones and becomes their reality, a shield against the person who'd take a bullet for them without thinking. Julia didn't start a mudslinging fest after the divorce. She was too smart for that. She just poisoned the well, bit by bit, always with a smile and just enough plausible deniability to make you question your own memory. "Daddy works too much," she'd say when I missed a recital I didn't even know about, or if Daddy loved you enough, he'd take you to Disneyland like Emily's dad, when I couldn't afford it. Denise drank it all up like it was gospel. Julia had this knack, if you can call it that, for rewriting history before it even happened. If Denise got a C, it was because I wasn't there to help her study. If she cried at a birthday party, it was because I didn't call that morning. If she didn't make varsity, it was because I didn't push her enough. Everything bad was my fault, and everything good was thanks to Julia's bravery as a single mom. Except, she wasn't really single. She was in a relationship by choice. Still, Denise clung to every warped version of events and used them to build a wall that eventually shut me out completely. I remember one weekend, Denise asked me for a pony. A freaking pony. We were sitting in the mall food court, munching on soft pretzels, when she looked up and asked, "Why won't you buy me a pony like Mom said you promised?" I was speechless. I laughed at first, thinking it was a joke, but her serious, already hurt look turned my stomach. "Sweetheart," I said, "ponies need land, barns, food. We live in a one-bedroom apartment." She looked down at her cinnamon sugar pretzel and whispered, "You just don't want me to be happy." And that's when I realized I was losing her, not because of anything I did, but because someone else painted a picture of me I couldn't change, a myth of the deadbeat dad. I became the easy target for every childhood letdown because it was simpler than admitting life doesn't always give you what you want, especially when the adults are busy settling scores instead of raising kids. Julia had the upper hand, being there for every tear, tantrum, and spelling bee. She sculpted Denise's image of me until I was just a shadow, the guy who only let her down. And God, I let her do it because I was too scared of dragging Denise through a custody battle in a cold courtroom. So, I stayed quiet, kept writing checks, and showed up in the small ways I could. I hoped that being steady, being there, would be enough for Denise to see the truth. But she didn't. Over time, I became a ghost with a checkbook, the dad who paid but never showed up, whose gifts and calls went unnoticed. I was important, yet invisible. That's the thing about being invisible, people forget you're a person with feelings, pride, or a breaking point. I was venting about all this to Tommy one night in his garage, surrounded by the smell of old motor oil and whatever regrets get stored in a man's tool shed. He just let me talk, nodded along, and then leaned back in his busted lawn chair. So there I was, taking a big gulp from my drink, when Tommy, with his knack for slinging harsh truths, piped up, "You kept feeding a wolf hoping it wouldn't bite. Guess what, buddy, it bit." That's Tommy for you, always cutting through the BS with one sharp comment. Later that night, I listened to a voicemail from Denise. Her voice was nothing like the defiant person who had embarrassed me at dinner. This time, she sounded vulnerable and kind of desperate, almost childlike. "Please, Dad, we need to talk. I swear I didn't know. Just please call me," she pleaded. And for a second, I almost did. But then, the memory of her saying, "You don't deserve to be here," echoed louder in my head. That wasn't a slip-up, that's how she really saw me, like some monster her mom created. Maybe she liked it that way. The first voicemail from her hit my phone just before sunrise. Her voice trembled like she'd been up all night or maybe just woke up feeling the world colder than it is. I didn't answer. I just sat there at the kitchen table, my coffee going cold, listening as if it were someone else's kid. "Dad, I don't know what's happening. My card isn't working, and I have rent due Friday. Can you please call me?" She sounded scared, not like the angry speech she'd given me at dinner, which was basically a public slap in the face. This was genuine panic. The second voicemail came 30 minutes later. Now she was crying, and there was no acting. "Dad, please, I think something's wrong with the account. I tried calling Mom, but she's clueless. Please, can you call me?" She seemed to pause, maybe waiting for me to jump in mid-message like I used to, as if wishing hard would solve everything. But nothing came. Just silence. By the fifth voicemail, she'd stopped crying, swinging between begging and blaming, a classic Julia move when things didn't go her way. "I don't know why you're doing this," Denise snapped, "but it's not okay. I have responsibilities now. Bills, an internship. This is cruel, Dad. This is beneath you," she insisted, as if she suddenly knew what my standards were, as if she had ever cared before about all I did to keep her free from worries. I listened to every message she left, each one oozing more desperation, then anger, then quiet. By noon, she had called 72 times and sent short texts like, "Call me, what happened? Are you okay?" The text got longer, "This isn't like you. I didn't mean what I said. Please don't do this to me." But I wasn't doing anything to her. I just stopped doing everything for her. There's a difference. One's cruel, the other is just survival. Then Julia called around 2 p.m. I figured Denise had spilled the beans to her, and Mom saw she couldn't control the chain of events. Julia was mad and sounded off with that tone she uses when she thinks she's right. "Mark, what the hell are you playing at?" she blurted, skipping the hello. "Denise is in a crisis. Her internship's on the line. You know that donation was tied to her placement. Her rent's unpaid, her laptop's busted. What do you expect her to do now?" I didn't say anything for a while, just listened to her jingle her bracelets and breathe impatiently, all that entitlement coming from years of choices she never paid for. Then, as plainly as I ever could, I said, "No. This time I'm just letting her see what that truly feels like." She gasped, hitting that melodramatic note I'd heard countless times during our marriage whenever things didn't go her way. "You're abandoning her," she accused, her voice climbing like a siren. "No," I replied, "I'm just stepping aside. You raised her to think I was nothing. Maybe it's time she experiences that world for real." She called me selfish, cold, vindictive, and said I'd never forgive myself. But this time, her words didn't sting the way they used to. I used to crumble easily to avoid fights, but not now. I stayed silent long enough to make her squirm, then I hung up. Tommy showed up later, just when I needed him, like always. He's like my working-class guardian angel, showing up with a cooler of cheap beer and hot takes as strong as his lawn-mower exhaust. We hung out in the garage, like back in the day. Same plastic chairs, same crappy radio station in the background. I told him everything. So, we're sitting there, just after dinner. I'm going on about the whole situation from the dinner to the bank transfer, and my buddy's just nodding along the way dudes do when they know all they can really offer is a shoulder to lean on. Finally, he cracks open another beer, slides it across the table, and asks, "You sure this isn't gonna come back to bite you?" I look him right in the eyes, and I go, "Tommy, I've been dealing with ghosts for 20 years, and they know me by name." That night, I took a drive to the bank, not out of fear or guilt, but because I finally saw things clearly. I closed the education fund, moved whatever was left into a new account with just my name on it. For once, the money wasn't earmarked for rent, school, or some last-minute emergency. It was for me. First time in what felt like forever, I felt this sense of peace. I wasn't quite happy, but I wasn't carrying around the feeling that I owed everyone everything. I ended up just sitting in the parking lot after, engine off, with my phone buzzing nonstop. Didn't even pick it up. It was like she'd burned the bridge, and I'd finally stopped trying to scramble across it. It's close to midnight when she shows up. Her car's headlights sweep over the house, kind of like a nervous ghost trying to make its presence known. She parks all wonky in the driveway like she couldn't bring herself to straighten it out. I'm watching from the living room, all the lights off, just sitting there in the same chair where I used to read her bedtime stories back when things were simpler. She takes forever to get out of the car, probably running over whatever speech she planned to give in her head. I was just waiting, not mad or anything, but because I wanted her to experience this moment without her phone going off or her mom feeding her lines. When she finally knocks, it's soft, like she's not sure if she even wants me to answer. A part of me thinks maybe I shouldn't, but I open the door anyway. There she is, raw and real, not done up with makeup or perfect posture, just the real her. Her hair's all messy, like it gets when she's up late studying or crying too much to care. Her eyes look tired, like she hasn't slept a wink since the whole dinner thing. In spite of all that, she looks more like my kid than she has in years. We just stand there breathing for a while, neither of us moving. She doesn't try to hug me, and I don't step aside to let her in. Finally, she asks, "Why did you do it?" Her tone's not angry anymore, it's heavy, like she's trying to understand. "Why'd you cut everything off?" I keep my voice low, stay right where I'm standing, and say, "You said I didn't do anything, so I stopped doing something." Her shoulders droop, and I think she didn't expect me to be so upfront, especially not after all those years where I felt like I was just bleeding for nothing. "I didn't know," she whispers, voice all shaky, like a bad radio signal. "I swear, I didn't know. Mom kept saying you didn't care, that we were alone." She looks at me with those red-rimmed eyes, fingers twisting in her sleeves like the little kid she used to be. I believed her. Of course, she did. Kids always believe the parent who's present, who makes their breakfast and fills their heads with stories, while the other one fades into the background. "You believed her because I let you," I say gently, but firmly. I'm not being mean, just being honest now that I've found my backbone and I'm not just gonna give it up again. Every time I tried to argue, she made you choose, and with each push, I lost more of you. So, I stopped pushing, hoping you'd come find me one day. Tears start streaming down her face, and she wipes them away quickly, like there's something to be ashamed of. I remember all those times I'd take care of her when she was sick or scared, but I don't move to comfort her. It's not the right time. This is about facing the truth. "So why didn't you try harder to stay in my life?" she asks, almost shouting, like she's been holding that question back forever. "Why didn't you break down the door?" "Because I was tired of bleeding just to show you I loved you," I reply, and it comes out a bit harsher than I mean, but she needs the raw truth. "I gave up every piece of me, and you handed them over to someone else." She nods slowly, kind of processing what I just said. Swallowing a truth that felt like fire going down, she said, "I didn't know," again but softer this time, like each word was breaking her apart inside. I just stood there for a while, taking her in, the woman she'd become, and remembering the girl who used to be my best friend, but now sees me as nothing more than a sad duty. Do you want to try fixing this? I asked eventually. Alright, then go ahead. But this time, you'll have to earn it, just like I did. She looked up at me, totally surprised, like she thought I'd just forgive her right away, like ordering a coffee. But nope, not this time. Not after 22 years of pretending I was fine. She hesitated, like she was trying to pet a scared animal, and when she reached for my hand, I pulled back, not out of anger, just enough to show her that some things take time to mend. The bridges between us were burned down to ashes and old memories, not something you can rebuild in a day. Her eyes watered again, but she didn't argue or beg. She just stood there in the doorway, and I stepped back. I went inside, and the door didn't slam, it closed gently. For the first time in years, I felt something stronger than any apology, a mix of justice and pain that actually felt empowering. Thanks for hanging out and reading till the end. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you won't miss out on the next juicy drama.